Right now, as you watch this, roughly 20% of adults past the age of 65 are experiencing this exact phenomenon internally. Yet, almost none of them comprehend its true nature. They perceive it a handful of times per week, while others face it daily. They rise from a seat or swing their legs off the mattress at daybreak, and the surroundings shift. A dusky blur passes across their vision for a brief couple of seconds, making the ground feel unstable. As the edges of their environment lose focus, they grasp for a countertop, a doorway, or the edge of a couch, waiting for the sensation to clear. Because it always dissipates, they dismiss it and move on. This is the exact reality I need you to reflect upon, as it is the sole motivation behind creating this video. That momentary blur represents one of the leading catalysts for older adults losing their balance and collapsing. This is not about stumbling over a rug or misstepping on stairs. It is about simply standing up, losing equilibrium, and dropping. A fall like that fractures hips, strikes heads against sharp furniture corners, and turns a minor instability into a chaotic ambulance ride, a hospital admission, and months of grueling rehabilitation. This is not a trivial occurrence you can continue to shrug off. While you perceive it as a fleeting distraction, your anatomy is flashing a critical warning light on your control panel. Let us be completely candid here, because you deserve straightforward facts rather than medical euphemisms. The healthcare infrastructure around you generates vastly higher revenue treating a fractured bone than it ever would by dedicating 10 unhurried minutes to educating you on why you became lightheaded. A standard medical consultation simply lacks the time frame, so allow me to provide that clarity right now, which is the foundational purpose of this platform. You already recognize this experience intimately. You have been resting comfortably, reading or enjoying entertainment, when you rise to answer a chime or heat some water. For a single pulse, you lose the sensation of your legs beneath you, steady yourself against a surface, and watch the feeling recede within moments. You then tell yourself the exact narrative that everyone uses. You assume you stood up too rapidly, moving forward with your schedule and forgetting the event until it recurs. Perhaps you have observed that it strikes most frequently in the morning, right as you leave your bed. Alternatively, it might peak following a heavy midday meal during that sluggish hour, or worsen during summer humidity, or immediately after a hot bath. You have recognized this pattern even if you have never whispered it to another soul. That recurrence is not meaningless static. Your body is actively attempting to deliver a vital message through those specific moments. Today, we are going to decode that message together, because the widespread assumptions regarding this sensation are entirely incorrect. When the surroundings spin, you naturally blame the most apparent culprits, assuming it stems from an inner ear issue, vertigo, or an equilibrium deficit. Sometimes a deeper anxiety surfaces, causing you to wonder if your brain is faltering, or if this marks the onset of cognitive decline you fear naming. Or you default to the lifelong habit of shrugging your shoulders and uttering the two words that halt all further investigation. It's aging. I need you to discard those three explanations entirely and view the situation objectively. In the vast majority of instances, the instability you experience upon rising has virtually nothing to do with your ears or a declining intellect. The actual trigger originates below your skull, deep within your vascular network, governed by a collection of microscopic pressure sensors that most individuals have never heard of. You have spent years directing your anxiety toward the wrong anatomical zone. Today, we recalibrate your focus permanently, ensuring that once you comprehend the mechanism, it stays resolved. Let me illustrate what is truly occurring inside using an analogy you will remember indefinitely. Picture an old rotary dimmer switch mounted on a wall. When that component was brand new, toggling it caused the room to illuminate instantly without a single flicker or delay. Decades later, however, that identical mechanism begins to lag, leaving the room dark for half a second before the electrical current finally catches up and restores illumination. The hardware isn't broken and the wiring remains intact. The device has merely slowed down over time.
Your internal blood pressure relies on a regulator that functions exactly like that aging switch, slowing down across the lifespan in a matching fashion. Stay focused with me here, because the moment this concept becomes clear, every unstable morning you have endured will suddenly make perfect sense. If this type of direct, unhurried education is what your brief medical appointments lacked, consider subscribing so we can navigate these physiological insights together. That pedagogical clarity is the sole driver of this channel. Let us dissect the precise physical mechanics phase by phase. When you are reclining horizontally or sitting at ease, your blood supply is distributed relatively uniformly from head to toe. The instant you transition to a standing posture, gravity exerts an immediate, powerful force. It abruptly pulls a substantial volume of blood downward, pooling it within your lower extremities and abdomen. This is not a minor shift. Clinical evaluations of human standing mechanics show that roughly 500 milliliters of fluid, nearly equivalent to a standard water bottle, drops downward instantly. Consider the immediate consequence of that fluid shift. The blood has departed from your upper body, which includes your brain sitting at the highest physical apex. Your brain demands a continuous, unyielding supply every single second to function optimally. Consequently, for a brief window after you stand, your head receives less circulation than it requires. That momentary gray blur and unstable vision represents your brain operating briefly on a reduced fuel supply. This is not structural damage. It is a temporary drop in pressure. Your physiology is far from defenseless against this drop, possessing an integrated counter-response system that represents a spectacular feat of biological engineering. Embedded directly within the walls of your major neck arteries and near your cardiac center are microscopic pressure gauges called baroreceptors. Imagine them as real-time monitoring devices built straight into your vascular plumbing, tracking pressure variations every millisecond. The exact moment your pressure dips upon standing, these gauges transmit an immediate alert directly to your brainstem. Your brainstem returns an operational command in a mere fraction of a second, instructing your heart to accelerate its rhythm and contract with greater force. Simultaneously, it orders the blood vessels within your lower limbs and abdomen to constrict aggressively. Picture a hand squeezing a flexible garden hose to rapidly elevate the internal water pressure. That vascular constriction forces the pooled blood back upward toward your cranium, accelerating the heart and driving circulation northward to restore equilibrium. In a youthful, resilient anatomy, this entire defensive maneuver unfolds so rapidly and seamlessly that you remain entirely oblivious to it. You stand and the illumination is instantaneous, resembling that brand new dimmer switch. Over the decades, however, two specific shifts occur, both of which are entirely natural evolutionary changes rather than acute diseases. First, the internal pressure gauges lose their acute sensitivity over time, a physiological shift officially defined as a decline in baroreflex sensitivity. These sensors have not decayed or vanished. They simply register and communicate the pressure drop with less speed and volume than before. The alert still sounds, but it registers a beat too late. The second alteration occurs within the vascular pathways themselves, as arterial walls gradually lose elasticity over the years. A young blood vessel is highly pliable, snapping shut the instant a command arrives, whereas an older, rigid vessel responds sluggishly to the signal. When the vessel finally attempts to constrict, it cannot clamp down with the same intensity as it once did. Now, evaluate those two natural shifts in unison. The internal alarm triggers late and the physical response is delayed. Consequently, for 2 or 3 seconds after you stand, your brain occupies that brief dim interval waiting for the vascular pressure to surge back. That specific window of delay is the exact lightheadedness you feel, a condition known clinically as orthostatic hypotension. This technical term simply translates to a temporary drop in blood pressure caused by assuming an upright posture. It is a complex name for what is fundamentally a brief timing delay. Because this mechanism relies heavily on the volume of fluid available within your circulatory pathways, it links directly to the principles detailed in my resource, the drainage protocol. That guide details how fluid shifts, stabilizes, and is regulated within an aging physiology. It does not replace our discussion today, but if fluid management is a primary concern for you, the resource link is available in the description below. At this juncture, I must offer a critical clarification that supersedes every other point in this presentation. While most standing instability stems from that benign timing delay, exceptions exist. Pay close attention to these parameters. If you ever experience a complete loss of consciousness, actually fainting rather than just staggering, you require immediate medical evaluation, not a deferred appointment. If your lightheadedness ever manifests alongside chest discomfort, an irregular or racing pulse, or pronounced respiratory distress, treat it as an emergency. Furthermore, if you experience dizziness accompanied by slurred speech, facial asymmetry, sudden visual disruptions, or unilateral bodily weakness, these are classic indicators of a stroke. You must contact emergency services instantly without hesitation. Additionally, if dizziness occurs alongside dark, tarry stools, it can signify internal gastrointestinal bleeding requiring immediate clinical review.
For the many viewers managing existing prescriptions, there is another vital rule. If you utilize blood pressure medications, diuretics, prostate treatments, or mood stabilizers, never alter or halt your dosage independently based on this content. Several of those exact therapies can amplify this specific timing gap, but adjusting their parameters requires the expertise of your prescribing clinician. Discuss these patterns at your next scheduled appointment rather than attempting to self-manage in your kitchen. Now that we have established that safety threshold, let us focus on actionable solutions, starting with a concept most viewers have never encountered. Certain daily routines that you likely consider beneficial are actually exacerbating this vascular delay beneath the surface. Consider a substantial midday meal dense in carbohydrates. Following a heavy intake of bread, rice, or pasta, your physiology redirects a massive surge of blood toward your digestive tract to process the food. This diversion pulls a significant volume of blood away from your general circulation into your midsection. If you stand up an hour later, the standard postural pressure drop stacks directly on top of the digestive diversion. This compound drop is precisely why some individuals only experience instability in the early afternoon. It is not an erratic malfunction, it is simple fluid arithmetic occurring inside your body. Alcohol consumption operates similarly, as even minor amounts relax and dilate your vascular pathways. This dilation is the exact opposite of the rapid constriction your body requires the moment you transition to standing. Consequently, that evening beverage actively undermines your internal rescue mechanism. Environmental heat induces an identical vascular relaxation. A hot room, a steaming shower, or a scorching afternoon opens your vessels wide to dissipate heat, drastically lowering their pressure retention. This structural opening explains why experiencing a wave of dizziness immediately after a warm bath is such a classic occurrence. You likely blamed the humidity or prolonged standing, but it was actually your vascular pathways opening up completely. To make this information highly practical, let us review how you can analyze your own physiology starting today. The first strategy is systematic observation, which requires no financial cost. For the next 7 days, every time you experience that visual blur, analyze the immediate context. Had you just finished a heavy meal, stepped away from a hot shower, or just risen from an extended period of sleep? Had you been seated motionless for a long duration? You are assembling a personal diagnostic map, and an accurate record of your specific patterns is precisely what any skilled clinician wants you to bring to an appointment. The second method is a simple duration test you can perform in the moment. When you stand and feel the surroundings begin to shift, remain calm and avoid rushing. Place one hand securely on a stable surface and mentally count to 3 slowly. If the sensation clears by the time you count to 3 or 4, you have identified the classic signature of the vascular timing gap, confirming that your compensatory mechanism is simply arriving a few seconds behind schedule. If the instability persists significantly longer or intensifies, that is a specific observation you need to report directly to your physician. The third strategy is exceptionally valuable if you possess a standard home blood pressure monitor. Rest quietly in a seated position for 5 minutes, record your baseline numbers, and then stand up. Remain on your feet for approximately 1 minute and initiate a second reading. With this specific condition, the systolic number will frequently drop by roughly 20 points, or the diastolic number by about 10 points, within 3 minutes of standing. Observing that specific variance is not a self-diagnosis, but it provides invaluable data. Presenting those 2 distinct readings to your healthcare provider changes the entire dynamic of your appointment, transforming a hurried consultation into an objective, effective evaluation.
Now that you comprehend the underlying physiology, let us address the practical interventions designed to keep your blood pressure stable. The primary objective of each strategy is straightforward. Maintain optimal circulation in your upper body when you rise and give your delayed reflex system a definitive head start. The first adjustment costs nothing. Stop standing up as if you are still 25 years old. When waking in the morning, avoid springing directly to your feet. Instead, sit on the edge of your mattress for a full 60 seconds, allowing your lower extremities to respond to gravity and letting your system register the postural shift before standing. This simple pause grants that delayed internal alarm the exact window it needs to synchronize with your movements, dividing your morning rise into 3 distinct phases: reclining, sitting, and standing. The second technique is rarely taught but functions remarkably well, allowing you to intercept the lightheadedness in real time. Because the resolution requires vascular compression, you can manually generate that force using your own major muscle groups. The moment you stand and feel a blur approaching, cross one leg tightly over the other and firmly contract your thigh and gluteal muscles. Alternatively, rise up onto your toes repeatedly or clench your fist tightly while tensing your arms. These physical actions are known as physical countermaneuvers, and they mechanically propel pooled blood out of your lower extremities back toward your torso. You effectively become the force compressing the hose. Most individuals are completely amazed by their ability to neutralize the instability instantly using nothing more than targeted muscle tension. The third element is optimization of your hydration levels. An anatomy running low on fluids possesses a reduced overall blood volume, causing the postural drop to impact the system with much greater severity. Maintaining consistent fluid intake throughout the day gives your circulatory system a broader safety margin. Many individuals find that consuming a single glass of water immediately upon waking before any physical activity dramatically softens those early morning transitions. The fourth factor involves sodium intake, requiring careful nuance because it represents a dual-edged intervention. For specific individuals experiencing this drop, elevating dietary salt helps the vascular system retain fluid volume, bolstering overall pressure. However, if you manage hypertension, cardiac issues, or renal complications, excess sodium can cause severe physiological harm. Never implement this adjustment independently. Instead, ask your physician directly whether an incremental increase in sodium would benefit your specific system or present a risk. Let them make that determination based on your comprehensive health profile. The fifth strategy addresses meal formatting, directly countering the digestive shifts we analyzed earlier. If your lightheadedness consistently clusters within the hour following meals, transition towards smaller portions and reduce heavy starches at midday.
Smaller, lighter meals require far less circulatory diversion for digestion, leaving more volume available in your general system when you rise. The sixth option involves external compression, specifically waist-high compression garments that exert genuine structural pressure rather than standard elastic socks. These garments physically compress the tissues of your legs and abdomen, preventing fluid from pooling in the lower compartments before the drop can even initiate. You wear them throughout your active hours and remove them before sleeping. They consistently make the act of standing feel more stable without requiring conscious effort. Discuss with your clinician to determine which specific pressure rating aligns with your needs. To begin tonight, focus on 5 straightforward, actionable steps. First, tomorrow morning, sit on the edge of your mattress for a deliberate count of 60 before rising to experience the physical difference. Second, practice the physical countermaneuvers today, crossing your limbs and tensing your muscles so the physical response becomes automatic when you actually require it. Third, place a glass of water on your bedside table tonight and consume it fully before leaving your bed tomorrow morning. Fourth, initiate your tracking map by keeping a notepad near your favorite chair to record every instance of instability alongside your preceding activity. Fifth, draft 2 specific questions on that same notepad for your next medical appointment. Ask if you should monitor your sitting versus standing blood pressure at home, and inquire whether any current prescriptions are contributing to this pattern. This approach involves no drastic upheavals, merely aligning your focus with the correct physiological target. Before concluding, I want to ask a direct question because your demographic detail directly influences which steps matter most. Please share your age decade in the comments section below. Are you navigating your 60s, 70s, or 80s? This matters because after approximately age 70, the pressure reflex slows down via slightly altered pathways, meaning adjustments to sodium and fluid levels require much closer clinical oversight from your doctor. Let me know who I am creating content for, as it directly informs the next educational piece I develop. As you leave, remember this core truth. That brief sensation of spinning when you stand is not an ear failure, a sign of mental decline, or an inevitable penalty of aging to be endured in silence. It is a minor timing gap, a brief pause in a pressure regulation system that once snapped shut instantly and now simply requires an extra beat. You possess the ability to expand your safety margin, grant your circulatory system those necessary seconds, and manually apply the required pressure using your own muscles the moment it counts most. Stop focusing on the wrong areas. You now know exactly where to look. Steady your stance, rise deliberately, and look after the incredible physiology that sustains you.